Welcome student in today's online section of mechatronics. Today we are going to see the force and pressure measurement, and then we will see the flow measurement. So here we are going to start our pressure and force measurement. Okay, so here we are. So what is this force or pressure sensors? So this force and pressure sensors senses the force, and it provides the magnitude of the applied force. It will also tells us whether the applied force it is in the compression form or it is in the form of tension. Then how this force and pressure sensors are related to each other? You know that force per unit area becomes pressure. So this force sensors can also use as a pressure sensors also. So here we are going to use this force sensors in the form of the by the strain measurement. So here you can see stress is measured using the strain. Strain, it is the change in length to the original length, the delta L upon L. Strain gauges is primary sensing element used in pressure, force and position sensors. So here just focus on the screen that here we are having, suppose we are having a rod of length L, and when you pull it outside, its length increases by the length dl. So you can say that the strain here is dl by L. When this strain happen, when you pull this bar or when you applied external force or tension force on this bar, we will get the strain here, or we will get the change in length dl here. So what you can say, the length of this dl or the value of this dl depend on the applied force. If you applied more force, you will get the high value of this dl, or if you apply a very small force, then you will not get a very high value of this change in length. We can say strain is directly proportional to the applied force here, or strain is directly proportional to the stress here, external. Okay, so here by knowing the strain, we can calculate the magnitude of the applied force. So here we are going to use this phenomenon. By using this finding this strain, we are going to calculate the applied force or pressure here. So here are the strain gauge. So strain gauge, based on the variation of resistance of a conductor or semiconductor when subjected to a mechanical stress, we are going to use this phenomenon in strain. The electric resistance of a wire having length L and cross section area A and resistivity rho is given by R is equals to rho into L upon A, where the wire is stressed longitudinally, R undergoes change. It is a common phenomenon that when you increases the this is the formula for resistance of a conducting wire, which is R is equals to rho into L upon A, where L it is the length and A it is the area of the wire, and rho becomes the resistivity. So you can say that R is directly proportional to L. So when the length of wire increases, or when the wire is stressed longitudinally, is R undergo changes, which is positive here. Okay, so passing small amount of current through such wire, so the wire which is under stress or which is under force, when passing a small amount of current through such a wire will thus help to measuring the voltage change, and by measuring this voltage change, we can calculate the applied force. The sensing element of strain gauge is made up of copper nickel alloy foil. Here you can see this is the copper nickel alloy foil, and this is the complete assembly of a strain gauge. I will show you in the next figure. The sensing element of strain gauge is made up of copper nickel alloy foil. The alloy foil has a rate of resistance change proportional to strain with a certain constant. Here you can see this is the copper nickel alloy foil or copper nickel alloy wire here. So this is the diagram of this strain gauge. You can see this is the wire, and these are the two terminals of this wire. These are the resistance measured between the 2 points. The resistance of this wire is depend on the applied force. whether it is the tension, then during this tension length increases, so we can say resistance of this wire also increases, and when we provide the compression we can say that resistance of this wire decreases. So the gauge intensives or lateral forces. So here are some strain gauge types: semiconductor strain gauge, then thin film strain gauge, then diffuse semiconductor strain gauge, and bondage resistance gauges. Then selection criteria. The selection criteria of the strain gauges are depend on operating temperature, the nature of strain, and stability requirement. The strain gauge. To measure the strain required accurate measurement of very small change in resistance, and we are going to measure the strain by using this strain gauge. For example, suppose a test specimen undergoes a strain of 500 into 10 raised to power minus 6, means 0.005. It is the strain. A change gauge of gauge factor 2 will exhibit a change in electrical resistance only 2 into 0.005. For a 120 ohm gauge, this change of only value only 0.12 ohm. So we are going to measure this change in strain by the change in resistance, or by the change in resistance here. So here are the strain gauge circuit. Here are the strain gauge circuit where we are going to use the Wheatstone bridge. You know what is Wheatstone bridge? Wheatstone bridge having the 4 resistance here, and Wheatstone bridge is used to measure the small change in resistance. When the change in resistance occurs, when the length of this strain gauge, here you can see this strain gauge is connected to the Wheatstone bridge. When the change in resistance of this strain gauge occurs, so this change in resistance can be sensed by the strain gauge circuit here. And when this resistance of the strain gauge changes, when this strain gauge wire is either tensed or compressed. Okay, the Wheatstone bridge is an electric circuit for a detection of a minute resistance changes. It is therefore used to measure the resistance change in the strain gauge. Strain gauge is connected to a connected in a place R4 in this circuit. Here you can see R1, R2, R3 and R4. When the gauges bear strain, initiates a resistance change delta R. The bridge output as corresponding voltage. Here you can see if we are connecting the two strain gauge over a test specimen, and when the force is applied on this test specimen, the wire inside this strain gauge starts undergoes tension and their resistance changes. This change in resistance can be measured by using the strain gauge, and we can calculate the value of the force here. Okay, with no force applied to the test specimen, here our test specimen, both the strain gauges have equal resistance and the bridge circuit is balanced. Here the bridge circuit will be balanced. However, when a downward force is applied to the free end of the specimen, it will bend downwards, stretching gauge 1 and compressing gauge 2. So at that time the change unbalance in the Wheatstone meter bridge will occur. Okay, so there are some strain gauge circuits. When this one strain gauge is applied to the Wheatstone bridge, we called it as a quarter bridge, which is V of output upon V of input is equals to 1/4 of the gauge factor into strain here. This small e for strain. For half bridge, it is equals to half into gauge factor into then for full, when the 4 is connected here, this is the full Wheatstone bridge circuit. It is V of output upon V of input is equals to gauge factor into strain. In above equations, gauge factor is equals to delta R upon R, which is change in resistance to the strain. You know how we calculate the strain, it is equals to change in length to the original length. By knowing this gauge factor, we can calculate the force applied to the strain gauge, which is equals to force is equals to 2 into area into Young's modulus into V of output upon this gauge factor G into 1 plus mu into V of I. V of I is supplied voltage, where V of O it is the output voltage. This is the small this is the mu, and its value normally constant as 0.3. This G is the gauge factor. By using this relation, we need to calculate the force here. Okay, so effect of temperature on output of gauge. So ideally we would like the resistance of strain gauge to change only in response to the applied strain, but sometimes temperature also affects the output. However, strain gauge material as well as specimen material to which the gauge is applied will also respond to change in temperature. Strain gauge manufacturer attempts to minimize the sensitivity to temperature by processing the gauge material to compensate for the thermal expansion of the specimen material. Compensated gauges reduce the thermal sensitivity, they do not totally remove it. Okay, so here the strain gauges concept is over. The strain gauge is used to measure the pressure here. Measure the pressure, or we can say strain gauge is used to measure the force here. Now we are going to see the second concept, which is electromagnetic flow sensor. So here are the electromagnetic flow sensors on your screen. Okay, so here we are going to measure the flow, means here we are going to measure the velocity by using the electromagnetic way. That's why we called it as electromagnetic flow sensors. Okay, so what is this flow sensor? Flow switches are used to detect the liquid flowing through a pipe or air flowing through a duct. Flow switches, however, cannot detect the amount of liquid or air flow. To detect the amount of liquid or air flow, a transducer must be used. A transducer is a device that converts one form of energy into another. We already learned this. In case of flow sensor, the kinematic energy of a moving liquid or gas is converted into electric energy, then it is measured. Various type of flow sensors available are liquid electromagnetic, vortex orifice plate, airflow sensors, and calorimetric flow sensors. Today we are going to see this electromagnetic flow sensor. The electromagnetic flow sensors are useful for measuring the movement of conductive liquid. These sensors operate on principle of Faraday's law concerning conductor moving through a magnetic field. Here we are going to only provide this magnetic field around a fluid which is conducting fluid. This law says that a conductor moves through a magnetic field, a voltage is induced into the conductor. The amount of induced voltage is proportional to the strength of magnetic field and the speed of moving conductor. So here what is happening? Here you can see this is the pipeline, and inside this pipe a flow of fluid is continuously going on. We put this magnets here, and because of this magnet there is a production of magnetic field, and when this conducting liquid flows to this magnetic fluid, we get a generation of voltage, or we get a generation of EMF. By knowing this, we can calculate the velocity here. So here, in case of electromagnetic flow sensor, the moving liquid is the conductor. The electromagnetic flow sensing, a pair of electrodes are inserted on the opposite side of a non-conducting and non-magnetic pipe which carries the liquid. Here you can see, here we are having these two conductors here, this one and this is another, and by knowing this EMF which is created between them, E, we can calculate the velocity of the fluid. The pipe is surrounded by electromagnet which produced by the magnetic field. The voltage is induced across the electrode. Here the electromagnetic field is produced by the two magnets here. So it's magnet 1 and as these are the two poles of magnetic field which produces the magnetic field inside the magnetic field around the pipe here. This pipe is non-conducting or non-magnetic here. The magnitude of an EMF is proportional to the rate of which the field lines are cut. Assuming constant magnetic field, the magnitude of voltage appears across the electrode will be proportional to the velocity. So according to the Faraday's law, it is the induced EMF is equals to BLV into 10 raised to the power minus 8 into V. Here V for velocity, this L for length of conductor, and this B for magnetic flux density. Okay, and this E for this capital V here, this is the unit of this EMF, which is volt. Here this EMF can be measured, then magnetic flux density is known, then length of conductor is known, and using all this here only the velocity is not known, V. So by putting all this value here, we can calculate the velocity of the fluid, and we can use this electromagnetic flow sensors to measure the velocity of fluid here. Then advantages: here is no obstruction to flow, then it is having high accuracy and reliability, then output voltage is linearly related to the input of flow rate. The output is unaffected by change in characteristics of liquids such as viscosity, pressure and temperature. Bidirectional flow can be measured by reversing the connection, which can be done manually or automatically. Then disadvantages is that the operating cost is high, particularly if heavy slurries are handled. They must be full at all the time because it seems velocity are analogous to volume rate. Its use is limited to fluid having conductivity at least of the order of 0.05 UM/Ho per centimeter. Then application of this electromagnetic flow sensor is: this type of sensor in its various forms has been widely used for metering corrosive acids, cement slurries, then sewage, paper pulp, detergent, etc., which presents the difficult handling problem. All these difficult handling liquids flow can be measured by electromagnetic flow sensors. Okay students, so here we are stopping. In the next section we will see about some color code sensors. Here I will take some names. In the next section we will see about this color sensor, which is RGB type, then biosensors, enzymes, ECG and EMG. We already took this hydraulic and pneumatic actuators, then linear electrical actuator. Okay, so this selection of sensors and actuators. Okay, so here we are. The selection criteria of sensors and actuators. So selection is based on the following criteria: static characteristics, dynamic characteristics. We already took the statics and dynamic characteristics in first section. The static characteristics are uses are the characteristics shown when we are going to measure the static variable. And when this dynamic characteristic, when the measuring input is varying rapidly, at the characteristics show at that time, these are the dynamic characteristics. Then cost, procurement, commissioning, the maintenance of this sensor and actuators, then availability and space constraint, which is size. So these are the selection criteria or the parameters which we take into account while selecting a actuator or sensors. Okay, so today we are stopping here. See you in the next section. tomorrow. Thank you.